Ghostly Love, Finding Light in the Shadows. So here we are, Soul Traveler, continuing to explore the hashtag Ghostly Love campaign. And much of my videos have already shared some of my ghostly encounters from my childhood, from my teens, and into my 20s and 30s. And I also touched upon some key pivotal moments in my last video that really helped to put me on a different path with embracing being an empathic psychic medium and energy healer. So in this video, I'd really like to share some further reflections around these ghostly encounters and how leading with love was really the premise and a very powerful tool to anchor in and move forward with as these ghostly encounters continue to unfold. One of the things that I really started to see as I was planning out these videos was this beautiful progression that when I look back at now, I can really see how each one of those experiences, even if I didn't think they were helpful or useful, or why would I have an experience like that at the time when I was in that moment, they really were necessary to help me hone and bring forward my innate wisdom and my abilities to really step in and become the empathic psychic medium that I've always been, but didn't know how to actually operate as such. And it really was, as I look back, a beautiful progression of integration. Because each one of those ghostly encounters allowed me to develop wisdom, develop an experience, have some form of reference point for me to refer back to that allowed me to build upon as I continued to cultivate and to experience and to grow into all of these abilities that, as I look back, have produced a beautiful integrated cohesiveness that is quite miraculous for me to look at. So in the early years, it really was filled with terror because I just didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know how to be a medium. I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't even know that was a thing. All I knew is that when people talked about ghosts, it was frowned upon or it was shunned away. And then in my teens, as I started to develop more of an individuality and a separation from the beliefs and ideology that were shared with me from my friends, my family, from society, I started to see and develop my own belief systems and my own individuality around a lot of things, that it was in that fascination and that curiosity, even though there was the fear very rampant there, it still had this driving point to move me forward. Even though I was dealing with a lot of hormonal and many other human experiences that were quite difficult for me to navigate at the time. And then moving into my 20s and having my child and wanting really to support her to the best of my ability in a much greater sense than I would have been able to if I had stayed in the fear. And that drive led me to take the steps and the actions to support myself in moving forward and finding my way. And so as I look back, there's really been this beautiful integration process that has happened. And each one of those experiences, of those ghostly encounters, have allowed me to integrate a little bit further, have allowed me to embrace and deepen and cultivate that wisdom as a psychic medium to really help me to expand out and become a very well-rounded medium with many different experiences, with many different insights and knowledge and wisdom. And as I continued to find and utilize the resources that were opening up to me over the last, we'll say, 15 years, these resources and these courses have continued to strengthen and build upon what was already being developed in my childhood and in my teens. And that is so incredibly beautiful for me to look back at these beautiful integrations periods, and even me turning down the dial point where I just felt like I needed to be able to function. Even that was necessary for me as well, because that allowed me to experience life without feeling like I was being bombarded, right? So these ghostly encounters no longer feel haunting for me anymore. They no longer carry the same heavy, fearful, terrifying energy that they once did for me. In fact, one of the things I wanted to share in this video was the beautiful intention that I had started to work with, I want to say probably about 10 years ago, where I was starting to get more comfortable around, interacting with the unseen, with all of these ghosts and all this stuff. And I was unraveling that fear, and I was developing more of that compassion. And as I looked back on those earlier experiences in my childhood, especially with some of those ones at my time when I spent summers at my aunt's house, and there was a lot of activity that happened in that place. And I didn't touch on that in that video, but that's okay. And even in that house across the street there when I was a kid, and, in the townhouse, and just many of the places that I had been in my early childhood where I knew there was something there, but I didn't know how to help anybody. I didn't know what I didn't know. I actually spent some time about 10 years ago where I sat down and I wrote out all of the experiences of the places that I could remember in the moment. And I wrote them all down, and I actually sat in a meditation. I set an intention that I wanted to go into the energy space of these places, and I wanted to help heal the energy there. I wanted to help cross over the people that were still there. So I took it upon myself to go back into these places and set the intention and ask for information and open myself up to being a guide, to being a healing energy guide, to being the psychic medium, and experiencing these places at a distance now, because I wasn't going to travel, because some of them are quite far from where I live now, since we moved around a lot when I was a kid. But I went there, I astral projected myself there, as I often do when I'm doing this healing work. And I went back into the energy space. And when I went into the energy space, again, of all these places, coming from a different perspective, a premise of love and compassion and kindness and pure curiosity and pure love only wanting to help in whatever way I was able. That is when I started to get different layers of information that built upon what I felt when I was there. And this is when I actually got to see the people that were there, those loved ones that were there, that when I was a kid felt so scary. They felt so terrifying. And really, they were just somebody's dad, or they were just somebody's grandpa, or they were just somebody's son. And so in doing this reflection piece where I went back and did the healing, where I opened myself up to going into all these spaces, it allowed me to soften into the energy and come from a place of love to help further heal those places. And some of them had already crossed over, because what I learned by doing this was that my team of crossover guides that I have, they told me that there are our loved ones, like there are our team of guides, our spirit guides, our angels, all the beings on the other side that have the compassion and come from a place of love, that want to support us here while we're incarnation. They get together and they do their very best on the other side. We can just call it the other side for lack of a better term right now. They do their best from that vibrational space to help the souls or the consciousness of these loved ones that are stuck, that may still be stuck here, or that may be resistant from going home, or that need that extra bit of love and care to get them back home. They do their best to come through the frequency layers to move that soul back home. And so what I understood from this was that they do their best to come through the veil, through the vibrational frequency layers, and they still continue to work with moving that soul home and bringing that soul home. So even if I wasn't there and I wasn't a conscious or active participant in this, I guess, healing of the land, the guides in my crossover team, they were still working on healing the land. They were still working with the loved ones, with the souls, with the ghosts that were there. And so some of the places that I went back into, the souls that had been there when I was there were since gone, like have been since crossed over, and they were gone. And so it was really nice for me to go in and check in on these places, because then I was able to get the validation or even see that these places were receiving healing even without my actively having to be part of it. And that was really beautiful for me, and it really warmed my heart, because I was in such a place of fear as a child when I was in these places that I had no way of being consciously able to assist these people. And all I did was meet them with fear. And that was the other piece that was really supportive for me in learning how to interact and communicate with the spirits, with the ghosts. And that is, if you meet them with fear, that's all they can give you back. But if you meet them with love, that's what you'll get back. And much of these ghostly encounters were always riddled in fear and presented themselves in fear, because that's all they were ever given was fear. And so a big game changer for me was, even in the I guess you could say, the most unpleasant or the dark, fear based experience of a ghostly encounter. When I had this knowledge that I was armed with, it's like, just give them love because that's all they can give you back. Then it became a very interesting dynamic when I would start to communicate and start opening up the lines of communication with these unseen beings, with these conscious souls, with these ghosts. And it became, nope, you're not allowed to meet me with fear because I am only going to give you love. I love you far too much to let you continue to be here. How may I help you? How may I be of service to you? How can I bring compassion and love to your world, to where you're vibrating? I am more than happy to have a conversation with you, but I will only meet you with love. And the interesting thing that started happening when I took this concept on and I really started to experiment with it, because when I first heard it, I was like, what? No. That's not how it works, because that wasn't my experience at the time. So I started to dabble and experiment with this. And so when I really stepped into anchoring in love and really put the walls of love up and led with love right out into every single interaction that I had of the unseen, that is when I started to notice that even if a spirit or a ghost or whatever you want to call them, a loved one, tried to give me anything but love, it immediately could not be sustained in the vibrational frequency of love that I was holding. And it either had to dissipate and recede back, or it had to shift its own vibrational frequency in to match my loving vibrational frequency, or it had to completely leave because it no longer could vibrate or resonate in the vibrational space that I was holding. This was really different for me. This really gave me pause. It almost kind of took me back in some way, because I was like, could it really be that simple? Could it really be that easy? And yet, even if there was still a level of fear that was still kind of, vibrate from me, the moment I put up the love walls and the moment that I stepped into shining that love forward, it shifted. It shifted. That fear transformed into love. It shifted away into a new path. It flabbergasted me. It was so surreal for me to see how love really started paving the way. And truly, these haunting experiences became masterful experiences of healing, so filled with promise and hope, and like, wow, I contributed to that healing. I contributed to helping this person move home and go home. How incredibly amazing is this? How incredibly awesome and profound is this? Really, this is absolutely fantastic. It truly was a different way to perceive being a medium, and seeing these abilities that I never thought I could integrate into my life. I never thought I would be able to utilize these abilities for anything other than, just shutting myself off and sensing and knowing that people were there. But here I was being presented with beautiful experience after beautiful experience that, although still held a little bit of fear while I was learning to stretch and expand out in love, was creating tangible results. They really were tangible. People were telling me that, you know, whatever I did worked. And I was like, oh, cool. And, you know, I myself was seeing a beautiful transformative experience where I no longer was, you know, being bombarded by spirits coming into my life. You know, I had once heard that a medium, from a lady, it was an acquaintance. She said that her medium friend would literally create a room in her house where she would have a waiting room for ghosts, and they would, all the spirits would congregate in there, and she would come in there when she was ready to offer her services to them. And I thought, oh, do I need to do this too? And now I didn't need to, though. I was being shown a whole new direction, a whole new way to integrate all the aspects of me, all of the parts of me that I often shut away because I couldn't integrate them into the human aspect of my life. And I had to keep it separate. So in many ways, and for most of my life, I was living two lives. I was living a separate life. And so I would have my spiritual mediumship self over here, and I would have my everyday human self over here that had, you know, the wife, the mom, the, you know, the career person, whatever, right? All the things human over here. And then I had my spiritual self over here. And there was so much separation within myself. And I never thought it possible to bring the two worlds together. I never thought it possible that I could, you know, function and live and embrace and really thrive as a medium, as an empathic psychic medium, living a human life, embracing this human experience and all the ins and outs of the beautiful dynamics that being human allows us to experience. And yes, it's not without its ups and downs and ins and outs and that, and the tears and the hurts, the pains, all that. But wow, what an incredible gift. That, what would I tell my young child self? Well, I would tell my young self that it's okay, that you're going to be able to integrate everything that you know, and it's all going to make sense. You know, but I had no idea that young little self, that young little me, hiding, trembling underneath the covers, praying, just praying to live a normal life, would ever be able to integrate all aspects, all parts of me, all avenues of me, past, present, future, beyond the time-space continuum, to create this whole beautiful, harmonious, integrated, you know, part of me, the whole energetic part of me that is now so rooted in love, compassion, and kindness, to bring forward this beautiful ability to help others heal and shift and return to their own wholeness, to their own divine innate wholeness, is just truly remarkable. And I never thought that even possible. I had no idea what any of this would even look like. And so much of what I experienced in these ghostly encounters really were helping me to nurture myself and to return myself to me. And even if I didn't like it in the moment, I mean, it certainly wasn't a really good moment to hear that I was questioning everything and doubting everything by an outside person, and then having it reconfirmed by my family members or my friends. And I mean, by no means am I perfect or, you know, have it all figured out, because I'm still learning and growing and and continuing to open up and expand and to bring forward even more information and divine innate wisdom in from my soul to continue helping me on this beautiful journey that I'm on. But I am incredibly grateful for all the lessons and all of these deeply terrifying experiences and profoundly beautiful experiences that have now allowed me to shift into a whole new capacity as a medium, so that when I move into a space, or when I go into a space, or when I find myself being put into a place, I know something's off and I can feel it right away. I don't ignore it now. I embrace it and I meet it with love right away. And I connect in and say, "Okay, guys, I don't understand what's going on. Please provide me more information." Most recently, the place that I just found myself moving into here, it had a whole new different dynamic of healing that needed to be done. And it took me about 2 weeks of living here for me to finally get the answers and gain the understanding. Actually, I still didn't really get the answers, but gain the understanding of what needed to come forward to be integrated and healed, so that this place could become a radiating beacon of love, vibrating and expanding and pulsing and radiating out beautiful divine love, healing, and wisdom at the highest vibrational frequency, so that the whole entire energy of this place shifts and the whole community around this place shifts. And so it was quite an interesting experience, actually, because for the first time in years, really, I was being met with some activity happening where the motion lights were going off with nobody there. And I, was feeling somebody there, but they were retreating. And it was, in so many ways, it was almost like what was happening and what was transpiring was being receding from me. So it was almost like it didn't want to meet me to provide me the wisdom and the guidance. So I really it wasn't like a ghost just kind of stood right up in front of me and was saying, "Hey, by the way, I would like some help with this." It wasn't like that, like it has been for some of my interactions in the past, but it was more like coming in, going out, coming in, going out, coming in, going out. And there was this strong sense of fear coming in, and strange mood things were happening. Like I was finding that I was empathing some anger and some resentment, and like just it was weird. My emotions felt very unstable, and I haven't had this experience for quite some time. Because I'm pretty well adept with, feeling very grounded, very supported, very, stable and solid in so many ways. And I haven't really, I guess you could say, unconsciously just been absorbing people's emotions, like, as an empath, right? We pick up other people's emotions. I haven't actually empath other people's emotions just on an unconscious level now, because I've got a lot of energetic boundaries in place now and a lot of protection around myself. And I just have a lot of intentions set up for how I work. And so those are still in place. But it was very interesting that when I was here in this 2 weeks, I started feeling like I was empathing somebody's emotions, and I couldn't figure out who or what that was. And I really relied on my guides and really my soul and connecting and saying, "Okay, I know something's not right. What's going on here?" And it was interesting because the pieces that were coming in were very fragmented. And because they were so fragmented, I kind of felt like I wasn't really getting the whole picture. I did know that I needed to do a deep land healing and a deep clearing and honoring, but outside of that place. I couldn't be in my space to do it. I didn't understand why, but I just trusted that I needed to be outside of my own space to do it. And the interesting thing is that the day that I had other plans, well, the universe had other plans for me. So everything that I thought I was going to be doing that particular Monday ended up getting shifted and changed. And I was given the opportunity to do the healing from a different location. And it was so interesting because they were giving me a lot of the information. And I always find that when I'm receiving a lot of information, I tend to get kind of sleepy, because when we kind of go to sleep after, you know, we've taken on, let's just say you started a new course or something, or you're doing some deep healing work and you get really sleepy and you get tired and you need to lay down and have a nap. This is the body's way of integrating in a very gentle way, because sometimes this energy that we are learning, or the wisdom that we're receiving, can be quite intense. And when we process it, if we were to process it, I guess you would say on a conscious level, it would be feeling very overwhelmed for our nervous system, for our bodies, for our minds. And so the body's way to help us integrate with this is to sleep. And then when we sleep, we get the integration and we get the information in a much more easeful way, I guess you could say. It's with more ease and grace. And so when I went in and opened up the space and connected in through the records and all the stuff, and astral projected here in this place, before I could even astral project, I felt like I was getting so much information coming in that I literally had my little pen and paper, and I was like falling asleep and bounce my head back up and falling asleep. And then I would be like, okay, guys, what's going on? Like, I want to do this healing here, but I'm feeling very overwhelmed and tired. What's going on? And so eventually, after about, I want to say 40 minutes of maybe a half hour to 40 minutes of like bouncing and integrating and kind of doing the sleep thing, because there was a lot of information that was coming through, I was actually able to do the healing. I was able to astral project myself into my location, and I saw, felt, and the stuff that we did, much of it I don't quite understand on a conscious level, but I understand on an unconscious level because I was part of it. But I did a lot of light language. A lot of light language came through. There was a lot of signs and symbols and things that came through. And basically my takeaway was that there was some kind of tear or fracture, something, some kind of depths and layers that needed to be healed in such a way and in such a degree that I had never experienced before, which is why they had provided me so much information and wisdom in such a short period of time, hence why I was dozing off. And so the interesting part about all of this, though, is that when I was about to do the healing and going into the space, astral projecting myself here, it was very interesting because I was actually at my mom's house, and she has a roommate. And so the person that was there left, and my mom fell asleep. And her dogs were incredibly quiet. Normally they kind of, will bark at things, but they were incredibly quiet. And the fascinating part was that here at my house, where my husband usually resides with our two dogs, he decided to take them out of the house to the dog park, something he normally doesn't do. And so it was very interesting that the universe lined everything up, my guides, everything was lined up for me to go forward and do this healing without anybody here except for me, my high self, my soul, and the team that needed to be here, because there was a great deal amount of healing and repair, I guess you could say, and integration and honoring that needed to be done in this space. And so I thought this was fascinating, and this was my most recent healing. But even when I was being met with some fear here, that right away was my sign that something wasn't right. That I knew right away something was not right. And I was feeling, sensing, hearing, seeing even a lot of things that I had not experienced for quite some time, actually, because I'm just so quick to meet things where it's at that, you know, it doesn't become this, oh, well, I know there's something there, but, I'm not going to deal with it. Like, it doesn't become this sidestepping, right? It becomes this, okay, I'm going to step in, stand my ground, lead with love, and meet the situation, meet the experience just as it is, and really step into being of service and allowing whatever that looks like to come through. And really, I am simply a facilitator. I am so honored and grateful to bring forward this opportunity to hold such beautiful space for the healing to transpire. And I know that much of the healing that is done is not by me. I can see and I can sense a lot of the guides and a lot of even the person's soul itself coming in and performing the healing for me, or for the person, because it's simply not about me. It is simply about being open to have these beautiful experiences and have these beautiful opportunities to, I guess you could say, offer this facilitation for a deeper healing to transpire. And so anything that I get to contribute or to help facilitate with or help to participate in is such a beautiful opportunity and a beautiful growth experience for me on both a conscious and unconscious level, that I am truly honored to have, so that I can add it to my already surmounting encounters, I guess you could say, that is just helping me to continue to hone and grow and cultivate these beautiful abilities that once were so shunned by me and frowned upon, not just by me, but by others, but now have become a beautiful, necessary part of everything that I do in my life. Every step I take, every opportunity that I go forward and embrace, I am coming from a premise of a whole integrated self. The whole self, all the energy bodies, all of the layers that make us up energetically, that allow us to be there and here and everywhere all at once. All of this, I'm coming from a very beautiful whole self mentality now. And I'm leading with love first in all these experiences. And so it is quite interesting, fascinating, exciting, magnificent, marvelous for me to look back as I have gotten to share these ghostly encounters with you through these videos that are highlighting the Ghostly Love Campaign series, to see the growth, the progress, the integration that I have been able to experience for my whole entire time here, and how I am now using all of my innate abilities and still learning what some of those abilities are, to step in, to shine my light, to be of service in all forms, in all areas of everything that I get to do. Whether that is having a beautiful healing session with somebody, whether that is writing an email for one of my clients, or whether that is simply having a conversation or driving on the roads, whatever it is, wherever I find myself being guided to go, I get to bring this whole aspect, all parts of me, with me now, fully integrated. And that is such an incredible gift, such an incredible opportunity. And it brings me such sheer joy and delight. And even in my darkest moments, and I've had a fair bit of those especially this year, and even in the last couple of years here, I am still able to return back to this sense of love and this wholeness that really allows me to step in to support myself through these darkest moments, even when I'm wishing that things were different, because there is this level of setting an intention and hoping that things, will get better. But then there's, this softer side of just surrendering into the moment and, meeting each moment for what it is. So with that being said, beautiful soul traveler, thank you so much for taking this journey with me. And I would absolutely love to hear how your growth experiences and your beautiful ghostly encounters and experiences have helped to shape you and help you to grow. And if you're still feeling a little bit confused, or like maybe there was more to the experience that you might be missing, that you want to explore, I would be honored to have a conversation with you and explore that with you. But even just to hear your encounters and your experiences of the unseen, I would be delighted to hear how these have shaped you and what lessons you've learned and what takeaways and how you've integrated them into your life, and how maybe you've now been able to bring your two worlds together so that you can live in wholeness. Thank you so much for sharing these, and I look forward to many more opportunities to share my insights and my experiences with you. Thank you for listening. This again has been the Ghostly Love campaign series, and it has just been marvelous to share all of this wisdom with you. So thank you, and have an incredible day.